business, and I've got one too. You can't mind your business. What's the matter with you?
Welcome to another episode of the Brand Shorthand Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Vandergrift, and with me today is our positioning powerhouse, Lorraine Kessler. Lorraine, before we jump into today's topic, I want to start off with a recall experiment because we're still in the month of the Super Bowl and we're close enough that I want to see how much recall you have before we do our big experiment next week with getting our panelists to do some recall exercises. So I'm going to name some, let's call them thematics or some characters from some of the Super Bowl ads, and you tell me if you can name the brand associated with it. And then the second part will be, I'm going to name a few of the celebrities that were used, and you tell me if you can recall the brand that was associated with the celebrity. Sound good?
Sounds like I'm going to fail miserably.
Well, that's okay. That's the point. It's a recall experiment. And you pay attention more than most people, so that'll tell you. Okay, you ready?
Not this year, as we already covered. It was my Eagles, and it was my birthday. And you thankfully let me off the hook.
Yes, I did.
Have to review the commercials. So,
yep. Well, you'll be a better test candidate than most because you didn't pay too much attention.
That's right.
So
be like everybody else.
Okay, I have 5 here that I think you'll probably get 2 of them. I'm going to guess, maybe. I don't know. And the others were so bad that I don't even know what to call that because it wasn't advertising. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
First one, fleshy cowboy hat. Name the brand.
I have no idea. I wish I had a funny comeback, but I don't. But fleshy cowboy hat is...
Yeah, it was like kind of gross and perverted all at once. Yeah. It was Tubi.
Okay. Remember it now. Unaided, I do not remember it. Excuse me a second. But aided, I do.
Yeah. So it was the kid that was born with the shape of a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And he was being bullied because some other people had some supposedly fancy party hat they were born with. But this whole thing of your head being shaped weirdly, everyone just thought, oh, that's weird.
Fleshy cowboy hat. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
Pickleball matches.
Oh, well, that's ultra. Michelob.
Very good.
Yeah.
I figure you'd get that one.
Yeah. That was a good brand connection.
Yeah. Well, what about the Muppets?
Oh, and I even watched this one. No.
They were having bad vacation and good vacation experiences. Does that help?
What was it? What was the brand?
Booking.com.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, flying eyebrows.
Oh, the flying eyebrows was Little Caesars.
You remembered it.
Yeah, I almost got confused with the Pringles flying mustache.
So whose were the flying eyebrows? You remember the celebrity?
Yeah, Eugene Levi. Levy. I'm not sure which.
And what was he advertising?
Little Caesars. Their new product, this little cheese cup thing or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. You have better recall on that one than what I thought. Right. Okay, this last one is there's a boxer child or a kid getting out of a hospital after recovering from cancer. What was the brand?
I don't know. Was that an uplifting spot?
Yeah, it actually ranked pretty highly on Ad Meter. But I don't think anybody's going to recall it because even shortly after the commercial, I asked people, they were thinking it was a hospital that treated.
Oh, cancer. Yeah. I remember everybody thinks it's a hospital and it wasn't.
It's a drug company.
It's Pfizer.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I remember thinking it was for St. Jude's or something.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not really paying attention. It was for Pfizer.
And then it was like Pfizer and I was kind of like, really?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to name a few celebs, and you tell me if you can remember the brand. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Adam Levine.
No.
Circle.
What is circle?
Water.
Oh,
It's like it's they went off the theme of hydrating water.
okay.
That was their whole thing.
Okay. It's spelled weird, isn't it? It's not spelled like
It's
circle.
CIRKUL.
Yeah, I remember that I never heard of the brand before. And now I don't remember how to spell it.
It's popular with younger people.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that one might have hit better with them than it did with us older folks.
Sure.
Okay, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
Gordon Ramsay.
I didn't even know he did a spot.
Oh, okay. Well, you won't get it then. It was Hexclad. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, that's his.
Okay.
He is the spokesperson for Hexclad. It's a
Yep.
wonderful frying pan and set and whatever, and he really gets behind it. I, on the other hand, researched and bought green pans, which Stanley Tucci is the
Oh,
sponsor.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, one more. David Beckham.
Oh, that's the one where he's with, is it Matt Damon?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and that is for, I'm going to say it's for a beer, but Stella
It is a
Artois.
beer.
Stella
It is
Artois.
There you go. You got
Okay.
it.
Okay.
That was the other David where he learns he has a long-lost brother.
I only remember that because I think he's really handsome.
Who, David Beckham or Matt
Yeah.
Damon?
David Beckham. And I like Matt Damon, but so if he's in it, I'm paying attention.
Okay, well, how that went, I don't know. That's for our viewers to decide if they could even remember any of those. But
Also, wasn't Matt Damon? Didn't he do a thing with Stella Artois, and kind of a charitable thing with them? Wasn't he involved in the past?
I don't know.
I seem to think there's some association with Matt Damon and Stella Artois.
Okay.
I carry it.
Well, and going back to our previous episode last week about the Zeigarnik effect, all the teasers on that were who's this other David?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Did you see the teasers? Well, people got excited about that. Then they found out it was Matt Damon and the whole script kind of fell apart.
Oh yeah, they were like related.
And now that it's been, it's like, I don't know if they're going to use the spot much more, because honestly, if I saw it again, I'd be like, well, this is very uninspiring. The CGI was bad. David Beckham's not an actor, so like Matt Damon had to carry it, and I think it was just an awkward interchange, and I don't know. So
I don't know. I wish Ines Majori had a client who would hand them $8 million to place the media just, and then another $2 million to make the spot, and it'd be interesting to see what we would come up with.
Well, I wish they would publish something that had to do with the total amount it costs to produce the spot, because I was saying on our Super Bowl ad episodes that I wouldn't be surprised if something like Hellman's costs the most, because you're bringing back Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal, you added Sydney Sweeney, but on top of that, you're paying for the rights to use that scene.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And who knows what that would cost. I don't know. I mean, there were much more highly produced ones, like Reese's with the lava spot. A lot of CGI and stuff in that. Big cast, all of that. Maybe that costs more, but I'm thinking the talent fees on something like Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan just had to be exorbitant.
Well, when I used to write these articles in the past, the production values easily exceed $1 million to even, I think, more of an average. And this was a few years ago, $3 to $4 million. So, I mean, that's on top of the media value. So, and then you have more Hollywood producers and Hollywood directors making some of these spots.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I didn't notice this year, maybe I just missed it. In past years, there seemed to be a lot of car commercials, like Toyota, Kia. I'm just like now thinking, I don't remember seeing it. There was
just
a Jeep,
Ram and Jeep.
The Jeep with Harrison Ford.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and Ram was with oh goodness, I can't even recall who it was now, but they did this thing where he was driving it everywhere and basically trying to be destroyed by forces. And of course, it was Ram Truck and Ram Tough. So from that standpoint, it did great. I don't remember who the celebrity was, but it was a celebrity that was
Yeah.
driving it around.
We didn't
So
have the gerbils Kia thing or the
no,
Hyundai or the Toyota or
nothing.
all of whom have been really consistent advertisers for many
Yeah.
years. So that was kind of interesting.
Well, speaking of celebrities, for today's episode, we're going to focus on how brands are exploring entertainment. So it's not about celebrities, but actual entertainment as a way to appeal to their customers. In more recent years, the use of entertainment as a strategy for brands to engage with people has been a growing trend. Okay. Now, Lorraine, I'm going to take us way back to one that was a miserable failure, but we still remember it. Do you remember the Burger King chicken?
Oh, yeah, subservient chicken.
Yeah, the subservient chicken. See, I didn't even have to say subservient. You remembered it. And they tried to gamify that, where
Yeah.
they created it and it just did not go over. And as we know, they're back to have it your way and you rule it. They've tagged onto it. So we're glad to see they're back doing good advertising. But there are more and more brands now that are using entertainment as a way to dip their toe into extending their brand fascination, going beyond traditional advertising. You have podcasts, games, streaming services, apps, anything to boost engagement. Okay. One brand that's doing a lot of this, and it's kind of one that I personally like, is Chick-fil-A. On November 18th, so maybe what is that, 3 months ago, Chick-fil-A launched its new Chick-fil-A Play app, and it was to encourage parents and their children to spend time together by providing a bunch of content and entertainment. It has recipes, it has crafts, it has animated shows, and it has an original scripted podcast. So looking at that and separating it from typical advertising, what's your initial impression on either Chick-fil-A or any brand integrating its brand into entertainment activities?
Well, of course, I think integrating into adjunct entertainment vehicles versus using entertaining commercials, I want to make that distinction, is relevant to the category, to the product, to the company, and to what it stands for. And Chick-fil-A to me is a mystery because they definitely have a secret sauce, and I don't get it completely. But you see, even here, their stores, and they have like 3 bays deep on their drive-through, and they're packed. You can't even get into the plaza.
Yep.
I mean, they're like 5 or 6 times more crowded than McDonald's and Wendy's, which are adjacent. So, does this fit Chick-fil-A, what they're doing? And I'd have to say, again, being relevant to who they are. There's something, their secret sauce, I think, comes from their mission, and their mission is Christian-based, family values, about honesty and integrity, and I think their mission is actually to glorify God by being a faithful servant. Yeah, entrusted to us and have a positive influence on all who come into contact with Chick-fil-A. And they try to create a workplace that they're very successful creating a workplace that people want to work in, that they're honored and respected, etc. So I think that, Simon Sinek says that people don't buy what you do, right? They buy why you do it or what you believe. And so I think Chick-fil-A has a very deep well of belief that people respond to. Their core customer, and mainly families being a big part of that core customer segment, respond to. And so to now provide in a time when a lot of entertainment for kids is off the rails, there's no guardrails, providing entertainment for children and families that reinforces its values and ideals, I think fits. I think it's almost like they've become the replacement for Disney, since Disney abandoned this to be kind of the woke Disney. And it's like they're kind of filling a hole that's been left. And so it fits. And I don't think they're trying to make money on this or what have you. I think it's just as deepening the brand connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more
Yep.
qualitative, perhaps, than quantitative.
Well, Dustin Britt is their executive director of brand strategy, and he said that hospitality and fun have always been at the core of Chick-fil-A. And you know, they have their play centers in there, much like McDonald's
Yep.
used to. I don't know that there's many that have that anymore.
Yep.
And they have done good, wholesome content. They have coloring books, I think, for kids. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to when our girls were growing up. You go in there and it had, you know, good messages for it, and the kids could color it.
Right.
And I think the Chick-fil-A Play app is just a digital extension of that experience.
Yeah.
And so instead of always being physical in nature, there's now that digital way to do it. And the kids want to be on digital anyhow. So if this is bringing them together as a family to do it together, because that's what it sounds like it's encouraging, then like you said, they're really fulfilling that brand promise. And you know, their customer service, they always say the iconic "my pleasure," and if you
No,
don't hear it, you're almost shocked anymore.
right.
So overall, I think you would agree this aligns to the brand, don't you?
It aligns with the brand, and I do think it's, you know, I don't know how they're going to measure success with this. There's 2.8 million apps in the world, so talk about confusion and competition and just complexity and proliferation. I mean, trying to get your app downloaded today is not easy.
Right.
So I don't know how they're going to measure success, and I hope it isn't downloads of the app. But I will say that looking at what they've done, the branding is just so consistent and so clean and beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, let's contrast this next brand, Lorraine, against Chick-fil-A. I think it's a more direct application of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Duolingo?
No.
Okay.
Not until you mentioned it to me and
Yeah.
said, hey, we might talk about this.
Yeah. Well, that's why I sent over the information. Duolingo is using entertainment in its learning process. So it's a free language learning platform that makes learning fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't like to learn with fun in it? And in September last year, Duolingo kicked up their lessons by introducing their newest learning experience called Adventures. And it's a gaming experience that allows your character to practice interacting in real life scenarios and then putting those language lessons to test, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this gamified experience that Duolingo is using?
Well, I think it's extremely ingenious. I think it comes down to is the execution um, is the execution of this something that people can conceive or conceptualize in a useful way. But I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that making learning fun, right, makes it very useful. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, especially when it comes to language, the idea of making that fun, because most people, I think, feel daunted by that, and also approaching children, because we know that once your brain gets to a certain age, its ability to learn a new language goes down almost proportionately. So, and we've seen this done with math. There's been
Mm-hmm.
different apps that have made math easy and fun. So I think the idea is genius. I'm not sure executionally if it's catching on the way they want, but that's for them to determine, and they can always tweak that.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely competition out there. You remember Rosetta Stone for all those years and
Yeah,
how they
but
did
not
it.
fun. I did Rosetta
Yeah, it
Stone.
wasn't fun at all. Yeah.
No, and what's the other one that's big now? That
Babbel.
Babbel, and I
Yep.
haven't tried Babbel, but I
Yeah.
bought all the Rosetta Stone stuff, and it just wasn't useful. It wasn't easy to learn.
Let me guess, was the language Italian you were going for?
Yeah, I was going for Italian.
What a shock.
I have parents who spoke Italian and grandparents on Sunday. That's all they spoke. And I am the least language proficient, able person on the planet. It's just sad that people, my parents being first generation, really didn't want to teach the language. They wanted
Yeah.
you to be Americans
Yeah.
to a fault.
Interesting.
And it's sad that that happened.
Yeah. Well, in a surprising, I guess, connection with Duolingo here is how successful their podcasts have been.
Hmm.
They have over 300 episodes available for streaming. And here's what I think's going on, and you can comment on this. My
Hmm.
daughter, Madison, who is a huge, just loves traveling, and my other daughter does as well, Claire. But Maddie is just all about traveling. And I don't know if she's used Duolingo or not, but it's almost a culture of I'm really into seeing the world. And so it makes me think that because Duolingo is talking about people's, I guess, travel experiences, but even more specifically, their language barriers that have kind of created fun stories. I think that's what's making the podcast successful because I wouldn't necessarily go to a language tool, even though it's fun to use, and then automatically go, oh, I'm going to listen to all their podcasts too.
Yeah.
But they've created kind of a group, I don't even know the word to use, a club, if you want to call it that, of interest around travel and the language associated with that. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I think you're hit on something, and we hadn't talked about this, and so I didn't have this perspective because I found their podcast very broad and kind of disjointed from
Mhm.
learning the language, and I wasn't quite sure why someone would connect with them because the topics seem to be all over the board, but and seem to be unfocused. But I think you hit on it. I think the secret sauce for them is they're playing on people who have a deep interest in traveling. Like they're saying, okay, people who have an interest in language don't want to sit at home and talk to their family across the table, right? Or go to the office and just blabber on
Yeah.
in Taiwanese, Mandarin. Um, they're doing it because their purpose is they want to travel and have international experiences or have
Mhm.
experiences outside the norm. So I think it is interest, and then that's why your daughter would be interested in the podcast and find them
Yeah.
amusing and find them entertaining. So that becomes part of the brand engagement. So
Yeah.
it's smart, and their focus is very narrow, obviously, right? Because there's only a certain. It's not about demographics; it's about interests.
Hmm.
Because you could be. I know a lady in my church. She's near 80. She's traveled to like 43 countries,
Wow.
and seen almost every state in the union, and planning 2 trips this year. I'm just like blown away. So that's the kind of person who would find this really
Yeah.
useful and fun and engaging.
Well, and taking that a step further, so you have the entertainment value of Duolingo
Hmm.
that's creating an affinity for travel through the podcast. And now what we're seeing is on TikTok, they have 16 million followers. And what they do is they keep up with, popular trends, and they have a mascot that they put
Hmm.
to it. The mascot's name is Duo. Um, it's at the center of all their videos, kind of to strengthen the brand connection, right?
Yep.
And the the thing about the TikToks for them are they're often seen as chaotic and unhinged, but they are found to be an effective way to connect with their target audience of Gen Z and millennials. Um, what do you think? At what point do you think the embedded mode of entertainment is a step too far in terms of going to a platform like TikTok, which with 16 million followers, it's obviously working, but where does this eventually fall apart? Is there a point where it does, or as long as they stick around their core of the travel affinity, they'll be okay?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I really can't say. I can comment on the use of the mascot. Duo, which is kind of a owl.
Hmm.
Um, strengthen brand recognition. We know, of course, that's a solid branding move for
Hmm.
something that's a service that's less tangible. So, it's like having Mickey Mouse, right?
Yeah.
For heaven's sake. And um, just when we thought we couldn't invent any more phrases, we now have unhinged marketing as a term, um, which I don't quite understand, but I guess it's when you steer from old school advertising into incorporating more of these memes and kind of fun and games and this
Hmm.
kind of stuff. Um, but the borrowed interest of the owl, the mascot duo, that's solid. Um, and we know that works. So I guess the question for me, and it's a $64 million question, because we're in a different time than the game show 60 years ago. Um, is this marketing strategy of using gamification, right? Social media, cultural moments, kind of to engage users and promote language learning and sales revenue.
Hmm.
Is that working? And you already said they have 16 million. I don't know what the monetization is. Like,
Yeah.
do you have to pay to be part of this cult? Not, I don't know. But so far, it looks like they've hit on something.
Hmm.
Again, all things are relevant. I'm not sure this would work necessarily for GMC, for example, right? But their app has grown from 40 million users in just 2021 to over 100 million
Hmm.
in the last quarter of 2024. So it seems like it's working.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there was an article that you sent me, or maybe I found it, called from Daily Bruin.
Hmm.
And I just want to quote from it because I think it says something that's at least worth listening to or hearing. Duolingo's memorable unhinged marketing strategy, there's that term, has propelled them to the forefront of Gen Z's attention. However, as the novelty fades, the brand's heavy reliance on the initial shock value and attention-grabbing tactics might cause them to struggle to keep their audience engaged, raising questions on the sustainability of their current marketing tactics. And I think that's a reasoned risk or warning. You can rise. This is what we would call positioning. If you position a brand, and you can position a brand around being hotness,
Hmm.
right? Um, but guess what? Hotness is short term.
Yeah.
It dies fast. So you better have another strategy behind that hotness. And I think that's what the editor of this article is kind of pointing to. Is it going to work forever? Not sure. It seems very novel. And we know things that are very novel have a shorter life.
Hmm.
So hopefully they have a way, another strategy already in place, ready to launch behind this one.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep that affinity strong around travelers because I
Mm.
know, as I mentioned before, my daughter picks up a lot of places she wants to go, etc., from social media.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be Duolingo's because a lot of people travel that are not associated with Duolingo. So they're going to have to keep a hook in it somehow. I don't know how that's going to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
it's a
don't
good
either.
point. Yeah, it's a good point to bring up.
Hey, I have a
So
question for you. I have a
yeah,
question about, you talk about your daughters a lot. And I remember a few years ago, they were all about Snapchat.
yeah,
Are they still about Snapchat?
nope,
Died, right? And that's what, right? And now it's TikTok.
yeah,
Right. So,
exactly.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, that died. Pinterest was popular for a long time and that's
Yeah.
kind of settled in. It just goes to the point that at some point during the life of any platform, it's going to find what do you call it? You say it's going to find I think you
Yeah.
always say it's going to find its level because, we go back where we can say we remember people indicating that TV would put an end to radio and the internet would put an end to books and, you know, all this, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
puffery
They
that
always
ends
did.
up, yeah. So Snapchat, it's still around. Pinterest, it's still around. They all have their uses. TikTok's the hot thing right now. And I'll tell you, when, what was it, 4 weeks, about a month ago, when TikTok went dark because of the threat of being shut down in America, there was indeed a lot of anxiety and consternation by my daughters alone. They were trying to download all of their, I guess you would call it their assets, from TikTok that they use for referral, like from recipes to travel destinations to everything. Man, you would have thought it was the TikTokalypse or whatever
You
you want
might
to
know.
call it. And they were so happy when things came back on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely a platform by and of itself to be reckoned with. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we talked about two different ways to use entertainment.
Mhm.
Duolingo, which is a learning method in my mind,
Mhm.
but they've extended it with podcasts and TikTok and being entertaining. And then there's the Chick-fil-A way. Now that we've discussed these two brands' use of entertainment, what should we give our listeners and viewers as a takeaway when it comes to the use of entertainment for their brands?
Well, I think and we're talking about adjunct
Yes.
entertainment,
Yep.
not advertising in an entertaining way. So I
Right.
want to make sure that distinction is clear. One, I think you better have resources to support this,
hmm
because the broader you go, the more platforms you use, the more content you create. You can't do that on a shoestring.
Right.
So this isn't for everyone. This is for someone that either has a lot of investment money behind them, probably like Duolingo, or
hmm
Chick-fil-A that has very sustainable revenue and has already built with 3,000 stores, quite an audience and has a very healthy bottom line.
hmm
So I think that's first. I think it's great to experiment when you have that luxury and you can do this, and anything you can to increase engagement and sustain it is the game. And that's the goal, is to not only create that engagement but sustain it. And how do you do that? So I think in both cases, Duolingo is combining technology to make um, language a joy and not a chore. That's
hmm
pretty smart. And I
Yep.
think as long as they stick to that core and realize that the tactics they're using, they can be shed, they can
Yep.
be changed.
Yep.
That's like changing your clothes. The
Yeah.
core idea, the core idea is, how do we make learning a language fun and engage people at younger ages? To do that, and also combine that with the joy of just travel and being able to converse with people of different languages. So as long as they hold on to that, our sweet spot, what we believe is that technology gives us an advantage in helping people learn the joy of language easily. And so that's, as long as they stick with that, as I said, these other tactics, podcasts, gamifieds,
Yep.
apps, that can all come and go
hmm
depending on what's happening culturally.
Yep.
And I think Chick-fil-A is very similar. They already have a center. It's a strong center core. I think in good to great, they would be a number one today. If Jim Collins was writing that book today, Chick-fil-A would be a company that he would hold up,
Yeah.
because they're operating from such a strong core. I think if you overemphasize the means, the tactics, versus these kind of mission-driven, positioning-driven ideas, that's when you get into trouble.
hmm Good. Well, there's certainly a lot of other brands we could raise up as examples that are tipping their toes into the entertainment arena. Bless
That
you.
was my Zygergest.
But we need to wrap up today's episode of the Brand Shorthand Podcast. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining us as always. And thank you to our listeners for joining us again this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the Brand Shorthand Podcast. And until next time, have an amazing day.
Monday.
Ain't nobody's business but my own. You say you